Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tips for Developing Relationships with Local Officials and Why It's Important. I'm Vinny Civitello, Communications Manager for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. With us today is Bill Dressel, who serves as consultant to NJBIA's newly created Municipal Assistance Program, which operates under NJBIA's Member Action Center. The MAC provides NJBIA member companies with complementary business and legal consulting services on a wide array of business issues. Before, the MAC focused on state and federal laws, but now it'll even reach out to local governments to help with local permitting, zoning, and procurement issues, or to develop strategies for expanding in the local government marketplace. A few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you tomorrow along with the PowerPoint for today's presentation, so be on the lookout for those. I'd also like to draw your attention to the questions tab. Bill would be happy to take all of your questions, so don't hesitate to write them in as they come to you. And I can't stress that enough. Be sure to type them in as they come to you, or you may forget what you wanted to know by the time we come to the Q&A. So now let's get things started. Bill?
Good morning. First, a little bit of background. Municipal governments only have powers granted to them by the state legislature. Keep in mind that New Jersey was one of the original 13 colonies, and the King of England had absolute power. Today, substitute the King of England for the New Jersey state legislature. What the state legislature says basically is law for local governments. However, if there's a conflict in interpretation or ambiguity in a law that they enact, the municipality can adopt rules and regulations as long as they are reasonable. One example of that is back in 1985, the legislature adopted the Residential Site Improvement Standards Act, which establishes uniform construction standards for all 565 municipalities. However, the Superior Court agreed with the towns at that time that the towns should have the ability to adopt alternate standards to meet their unique circumstances. And that only makes sense. Keep in mind that we are a geographic diverse state in that we have in the northern part of the state, we have rocky soils, mountains. On the eastern part, we have sandy soils. Southern part, we have pine lands. It's very different. So you can't have a cookie cutter kind of standards to deal with those diverse circumstances. So you do have the flexibilities, the towns have the flexibilities to be able to adopt standards which meet their unique circumstances. In New Jersey, we have home rule. Home rule is not necessarily bad because the home rule reflects the decision-making of the citizens of that community. The governing body literally is elected by the people in that particular municipality. And if you have a concern, you're probably more apt to get a response than if you go to Trenton or you go to the county government, or God forbid you go to the Congress to try to get an answer to a local search situation. Town representatives are normally more responsive. Again, there's 565 municipalities with varying governing structures and regulations. There's a mosaic of rules and regulations and varying operating procedures, and that can be very challenging. There's also 104 townships, there's over 300 boroughs, there's some village forms of government, and you have various operating forms. There's what they call the Optional Municipal Charter Law, or Faulkner Act, where you have 3 or 4 basic forms, but 15 variations. So it does get complicated. And the goal of this webinar is to provide you with helpful tips in navigating the maze of regulations and developing strategies with your host municipality. Developing relationships. And I think this is one of the most important takeaways for today's program, is that you understand how your host town functions and who is responsible for the day-to-day operations. Is it the municipal clerk? Is it the manager? Is it the business administrator? Familiarize yourself with your elected officials, but keep in mind, it's the elected officials that set the policy. They enact the laws, and then it's the functionary groups, the administrative offices that actually implement that policy. Some key contacts for your Rolodex, folks that you should have on your iPhone, on your Rolodex, whatever you use for important contacts. And some of these departments include the assessor's office. Why is the assessor's office important? Well, the assessor is responsible for determining value of your particular property. Value, there's a nexus between value and what your property tax, how much your property tax is. So you should understand as a business owner, who your assessor is, and if they're a part-time official, and many are in your smaller municipalities, find out the hours of operation, find out who they are, and have a sit down with them if you have a concern. The tax office, that's normally the tax collector, and that's where you pay your taxes. Again, most of the offices are full-time. However, there might be a part-time office, and you should get to know what their office is. Health department. Health department can be at town hall, or it could be part of a regional county health department system. And they're very important to understand, particularly if you own a restaurant or you're food handling. You should understand where that health officer his office is and how to contact them. The police department, again, very important. Your emergency services take in the police department, the fire department, and possibly the Office of Emergency Management. Every municipality in the state has to have an Office of Emergency Management because they're part of a county-wide emergency system where the municipal government reports to the county government, the county to the state government, and that's important in case you have kind of a 9/11 situation, but you could also have a flood. You could also have a storm. You could also have a train wreck where you're bringing all these assets together. So the Office of Emergency Management is important. You should know who that person is. Zoning and building department for the business owner, that's very important because you're dealing with the electrical, plumbing, subcode officials, and normally within the zoning or building department, it could be called economic development office too, but you should understand, what department is responsible for those key areas of interest if you're involved in the development project. Public Works Department, we'll deal with that a little bit later, but that's very important. Engineering and legal and recreation. You should know who they are and how to contact them if you need to. Get your name on the list. And what by that I mean is it's important that you stay apprised of town developments. You should get a town newsletter or mailers. That information, it contains important information regarding trash collections, tax notices, zoning changes, special events which might be happening in your town. And normally it's the municipal clerk. The clerk's office is basically the custodian of public records. We'll get into a little bit later, but they also really are the communication arm to the town and making sure that you stay informed. So you should get your name, if you want to be on the list to get public meeting notices, for example, you can get an email of the public meeting notices and the agendas that are coming up prior to the meeting. And keep in mind that at a public meeting of the governing body, every agenda includes a portion of time where you can get up and you can make a comment. And that might be important for you, not necessarily to make a complaint or express a concern, but if there's something good happening in your town that you would like the elected officials to know about, that would be your opportunity to do that. And again, a word of caution, I think it's important that use public complaints as a last resort. What you want to do as a business owner is to establish a meaningful partnership or relationship with your town, and so you don't want to get up there and start complaining because your political capital is going to go down the drain if you do that. I think that you want to talk to the administrative staff. You may want to talk to the mayor. You want to try to work things out. You don't want to use the public meeting as a forum to get up and complain. And again, they're free guides for communities where you have a business, and I would encourage you to get familiar with them. And there's an excellent one, and this is just for illustrative purposes, is in the city of Asbury Park. They have a business guide, and this information is on their website. It's also available at Town Hall. And it basically is kind of a greeting, and then there's a little bit of history about the community, some key contact information, key departments that you should be aware of, and also for the business person, it's, the business checklist. Here's a complete zoning compliance application. It tells you what the fee is. It tells you, why would I need a sign permit, and a little bit about a sign permit and the circumstances that you would have to apply for one. Apply for a mercantile license. Where do you apply? How much does it cost? If you're doing construction in the community, the construction department, a certificate of continued occupancy. If you're going to be reselling your property, you need a continuous occupancy permit. Basically, the officials will come in and check for fire safety, carbon monoxide, fire alarms, things of that nature. That's important for you to know. And if you're doing any renovations, repairs, upgrades, do I need a construction permit? Do I need a zoning permit? And other kinds of key information that you, the business owner, should be aware of. It's one-stop shopping, but it's there. In other towns, they may not have a business guide like Asbury Park has, but some of them have calendars that they put out at the beginning of a new year where they have got some key information that you can find very helpful, and find out what that is, and make sure that you have that, and that your operating staff has that. Key departments to resolve your issues. The functionary, administrative, frontline positions, as I refer to them. And I think at the top of the list for the business owner is the Public Works Department. They're responsible for trash removal, recycling, roads and street repair, maintenance of common grounds, streams, ponds, and recreational facilities, signage placement, leaf removal, disposal of white goods, and not just refrigerators and stoves, but many towns have provision for computers and for TVs, and there's special treatment that has to be done. You call the Public Works Department, find out when you can put that out, and what are the particulars involved in, and getting rid of those kinds of issues, and they can help you. Maintenance of public municipal vehicles, that's comes under the auspices of the Public Works Department. Snow removal, and coordination with water sewer company decisions. And that is important because in New Jersey, you may not necessarily have a water-owned water plant or sewer plant. It may be come under the auspices of a private water company. And the Public Works Director, even though it might be operational by a private third party, the Public Works Director is responsive and can make sure that the needs of your business are being met by the company. Every town in the state of New Jersey, and this has been for about 20 years now, has a certified public works manager. It's not necessarily the mayor's brother-in-law that runs the Public Works Department. These folks are certified and licensed by the State Department of Community Affairs, and they have got to have an expertise in all of the disciplines that mentioned above. They have to know, the science, and they have to know exactly how to administer these departments in a very professional manner. Also, the Public Works Department is your resource for weather-related business hardships and dangerous road conditions. Being in the Northeast, New Jersey is subject, to inclement weather and snows and storms, and depending on where your business is located along the shore, periodic northeasterners or whatever. Public Works Department can help you deal with those kinds of unique weather situations. Again, road construction improvements. Depending on the road construction improvement, if it's a capital improvement for roads, that's part of a capital improvement plan, well, that plan has got to be approved by the mayor and governing body. It also has the monies for that particular plan have to be set aside in the municipal budget. So There's some transparency there, because if you have a public meeting where there has to be an ordinance and it's got to be notified, you have a notice has to be given. There's a hearing. There's a process where you as a business owner can go in and you can ask questions regarding the particular project and get a sense for timelines, get a sense for exactly when that improvement is going to take place, whether it's going to have a direct impact on your business or an indirect impact on your business. Get to know all those details. The town and those kinds of either a capital improvement or a local improvement, the town will give businesses notice when impacted. But keep in mind, there's varying circumstances that may occur. And I'm sure you all have run into a circumstance where there's a sign put up. It says construction on this particular road will take place on or about April 1. Well, April 1 comes and goes, and it's not necessarily happening. So, you should call the Public Works Department and find out what the situation is. But you should have backup plans as far as whether or not that's going to have a direct impact on your business, and you should be prepared for the what ifs, because what ifs do happen when you're dealing with road construction issues. The town engineer, I have found that the town engineer probably is the number one person who is able to explain the intergovernmental involvements and completion timetables. And you have a road. You say, well, gee, well, that's the responsibility of the town. Well, that road might intersect with a state road. It might intersect with a county bridge. Most of the bridges in our state and the secondary roads are the responsibility of the county government. So your town engineer can help you kind of navigate that process and understand the interrelationships, because each one of those governmental entities also has timetables and completion timetables and circumstances that will have an impact on the completion of a particular road. And if you have a concern, you don't feel like you're getting, all of the attention that you need from town hall, or, from the engineer, from the governing body, you may want to ask a state legislator that, if this town is in a legislative district, you might want to ask your assembly person or your state senator, to help you. But I would caution you here that if you're going to do that, let the town administrator or the mayor know that you're reaching out, because they may be reaching out too for assistance in trying to get the State Department of Transportation to move, and you don't want to be falling over each other's feet, so to speak. You want to make sure that you're working in a cohesive, uniform manner. Emergency services. Some towns may have separate departments for the fire, police, and ambulance services. They may not be in town hall. They may be within close proximity, but you ought to know where they're located and who's responsible for what. Others might have a public safety director. In some of your larger municipalities, more populous municipalities, they have a civilian public safety director who basically coordinates or orchestrates, if you will, all of the emergency services within that town. And you should know that because they have basically the broad view of emergency services, and they can kind of drill down and give you on what impact a particular issue is going to have on your business. The police department includes such things as contracting for officers for a special event, arranging regular patrolling to coincide with hours of operation, enforcing parking and towing regulations. That's the police department, and you should know, and most likely it's out of the traffic division. And there's various divisions of the department, of the police department, and in some towns on the website, you can take a look and you can find out the various divisions of the police department and who's responsible for what, and that's something you should become familiar with. And again, every town has an emergency coordinator. Again, that's the Office of Emergency Management, which I addressed earlier, to deal with responsibility for coordinating assets in case of an extraordinary event. Building and construction. In the 1980s, we had the enactment of the Uniform Construction Code. And basically, that sets forth uniform construction standards for all municipal governments. It's a national code. You may have heard of the BOCA code. Well, there's the BOCA code for the electrical subcode officials, the plumbing codes, the fire, the mechanical, elevator subcodes. And each one of those functionary groups has a licensed official, subcode official as they refer to them, who has to be licensed by the State Department of Community Affairs, and they have to stay relevant on changes to these national codes because they're changing all the time, particularly meeting with the new technology and new changes that are occurring in our society. They got to stay relevant on them. So that's an important thing you should be aware of. When you're dealing with the zoning construction code officials, you should contact, particularly if there's new construction or building alteration, expansion, rehab of, or installing a new heating, air conditioning unit or specialized equipment. You should know, who at the town issues the permit, whether or not, that building alteration, rehab, whatever it's going to be, any change of the footprint, that has got to be, dealt with by the zoning department, because you might need a zoning permit. You might need a variance, a hardship variance. That's important to know that. And to expedite the permitting process, you should identify at the front end of a project, what permits do you need? What are the review time periods that the town has? The documentation and or fees the town needs from you. And again, the zoning. And if you need a variance or approval from a state agency, and sometimes it's not, as I indicated earlier, if dealing with road situations, you might have to need an approval from a state agency. Now, the local town can be the quarterback on that, and they can handle that, but you have to understand that a state agency might not all the times be as responsive as your town government is. I think you should, in addition to being involved and having contacts with your building, your zoning officials, construction code officials, you should also be in contact with your town administrator, the manager, or the mayor's office if there's a problem that comes up. Again, they're responsible for each individual department and each employee. So I would not hesitate at all to bring any of your concerns to the attention of your chief administrative officer, and that normally is your town or your manager. Planning and zoning, understand what a permitted use is and what's allowed in a particular zone, what development is involved in a particular zone. Example, if you have a manufacturing plant in an industrial zone, you cannot convert a portion of the building into apartments or retail use without getting permission from the zoning board. And that's very important, and that happens a lot. And there's substantial fines if you do that without getting the necessary approvals from the zoning officer, or getting the roadmap for how you do that from the zoning officer, then getting the approval from the zoning board. Regulations maintained by the town's planning and zoning officer, engineering department. Again, you may need to obtain a variance. And what I would always recommend, that if you're involved in a project where you need approvals by the planning board, by the zoning board, an engineering office, or whatever, you should consult a land use attorney and or engineer, and make sure that they have, interview them, make sure that they have expertise in dealing with those kinds of applications before you contract them, because like I say, a trial attorney is not going to serve you very well if you're dealing with a zoning issue or a planning issue. Health services, Very important for the business owner. All towns must have a health officer. The duties include inspection and certification of restaurant equipment, food handling practices, cleanliness of premises, including your restrooms, and all commercial food establishments must receive a certified health certificate, which must be prominently displayed. NJBIA's Municipal Assistance Program. That's what the Municipal Assistance Program is part of the whole umbrella group of the NJBIA's Member Action Center. And this is very important to you as the business owner, because this is one-stop shopping. You have a concern with regard to legal advice or other advice that the Action Center offers. That's what you should take advantage of. For the Municipal Action Center, we're dealing with permitting, planning, zoning, procurement, advice on overall operations of local government, best practices on building relationships, understanding of local laws and regulations, developing strategies to expand presence in the local governing marketplace. That basically is, in the nutshell, is what the municipal, we call it MAP, the Municipal Assistance Program. But again, this is a free membership service, and there are a number of services that you should avail yourself to by calling the 800 number or emailing us, and we can get you that information that you need to help you run your business and be successful. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Bill. Looks like we have a couple questions here already, but I just want to give everyone else a moment to type in anything they have. So while I'm doing that, I'd like to take a second to remind you about the handouts tab. I used to get a lot of questions from people about how to download the PowerPoint slides, but ever since I started stalling time explaining this, that's gone down. So just open up the tab marked handouts on your GoToWebinar panel, and the file is right there. You can also wait until tomorrow and they'll be emailed to you with the video recording of the webinar. There's also the questions tab. If you have a question, type it in right there and I'll make sure Bill answers it, and don't be shy. So with all that out of the way, let's jump right into our first question that comes from Andrew, who would like to know, are there any requirements that municipalities have to notify me about construction projects around my business?
Yes, they do, but it also depends on, what is the proximity of the development to your particular business or residence. There are notice requirements within 200 square feet. There might be, depending on the size of the development and the nature of the development, there may be other notice requirements, but I would contact, the zoning office or the town engineering office to make sure that particular development footprint is not going to have a direct impact on your area. And there's various impacts. There's traffic, as you know, and other things, and other agencies that might be involved. But there normally is notice, particularly with large-scale development projects.
Stephen asks, I am aware that counties own businesses. As an example, Essex County owns the Highland Pavilion. My question is, how would I interact with government officials to inquire about opportunities to offer services to those companies?
You may want to contact your, the county executive office, or to find out which particular department within the county government structure is responsible for that. It could very well be, a private franchise, and let's try to deal with this generically, like if it's a golf course, if it's a catering facility, if it's a marina. Normally there is, a process for selecting whoever is going to be operating this and be responsible for the day-to-day operations. There might be a bidding process or selection process. And I think the best way in order to get more information on what process they follow for the selection of particular services that's required, is to contact, the county executive office, go on their website. It might very well be right there where it falls under the Office of Economic Development. It could be the Recreation Department, and they'll normally name the particular the facility, or like a golf course or recreational facility, or whatever it is. It's there, and they have that kind of information on how you can interact and engage those services.
Another Stephen asks, I want to sublease a portion of my building. In order to do this, I need to finish an area in my warehouse to use as an office. Do I need permits to do this?
Most likely, yes. It depends on the zone that you're in, but you should speak to your zoning officer as to what zone you're in, what is a permitted use within that zone, whether or not you need to have a variance, a hardship variance, whatever is needed in order for you to get that necessary approval. But I would encourage you at the front end of this process to have a sit down and to have kind of a checklist, or establish it in concert with the responsible official in town hall, to see exactly what you need, exactly what the costs are going to be. Do a cost benefit analysis of what's going to be involved in this, so you have an idea of what the bottom line is and can evaluate whether or not it's even worth you doing that, and whether or not the time delays. Get a copy of the timetable, find out exactly how long it's going to take, and they can give you some guidance in developing that that kind of a working document.
So Manisha was hoping that she could get specific contact info for people she needs to contact in Middlesex, Somerset, and Union counties. We're not going to do that over the air, obviously. We could probably have somebody here contact her privately. But is there, for anyone else who's maybe too shy to ask for the same thing, is there somewhere online somebody could go to get these kinds of phone numbers, contact infos, etc.?
Yes. I guess in the last few years with technology, and a lot of people, a lot of younger people than me are more astute in using the computer. Most governmental entities have websites, very informative websites, and you can go online and you can get, by department, the names of the officials who run that particular department, and various contact information. And I have found that very useful in my role with the municipal municipal assistance program with NJBIA, that I don't know all the people in all 565 municipalities or 21 counties, but I can go online and I can get that information. And if it doesn't have it to the specificity that I like, I would contact the county clerk's office, and the county clerk's office would be able to get you that information. Or in the case of a municipality, the municipal clerk would be able to get you that information, direct you either to a website, or they would be able to email you that information. But that's public information. You're dealing with agencies that are under the Open Public Records Act. Recent laws in the past 15, 20 years really have made local government and county government and municipal government more transparent to the end user, and that's you, the general public and the business owner.
Bennett asks, how can I appeal my property tax bill?
To successfully challenge the taxable value, you'll need to establish at least one of the following facts. The tax assessor relied on information that is incorrect or incomplete. The tax assessor set the taxable value higher than the taxable value of similar properties in your town. The tax assessor assumed that the current market value of your property is higher than it actually is. If you are convinced that any of these facts are true, you should confer with the tax assessor, and if they agree, they can change the value and you won't need to pursue an administrative appeal. However, if you can't reach an agreement with the assessor, you can appeal the valuation by petitioning your county tax board, which must be filed by April 1 or within 45 days after the tax assessor mails you an assessment notice, whichever is later. And I think what you should do, and again, is contact the tax assessor and sit down and try to figure out exactly what method they used. And business has different values and different methodology that they use in determining value than they would maybe in a residential property. But you should understand what that is, and you should be able to make your case and make a compelling case. And it might mean that you may need to hire a tax attorney, to assist you in that, depending on the circumstances involved and what particular property you have and what methodology is being used to determine value.
Iris asks, if I've made a political contribution locally in the past, can I still get local contracts?
Yes, you could, but there are several factors that come into play, like how much was the contribution for? How long ago was the contribution made? And what is the nature of the contract and the potential conflict with the candidate? And these kinds of questions are hard to answer and give boilerplate responses to, because they're varying circumstances. But if there is a conflict or a perceived conflict by a governing body official, they can recuse themselves. And if they recuse themselves, then they have to go on the public record and let them know why, what is the conflict, why is this political contribution potentially a problem for them, and that becomes part of the public record.
Jessica asks, how do I file an Oprah request?
Under the Open Public Records Act, commonly referred to as Oprah, all communications from elected and appointed officials, both at the municipal and the county level, are public records and open to public inspection. And basically, how you would go about filing an Oprah request is, once the requester knows the record that they want, they can make a records request to the records custodian. In the case of municipalities, it's the municipal clerk. In case of county government, it's the county clerk. By law, they must maintain all public records, and a request must be in writing, either on the form provided by the municipal clerk or the county government, or via an otherwise written method, such as a letter, a fax, or an email that clearly mentions Oprah. You have to mention in the body of the transmittal that this is a Oprah request. And the request cannot be made by the telephone. You just can't call up the tax collector's office and ask for a particular file by the telephone. You have to put it in writing. And I think it's important that you should, keep in mind that Oprah provides you with a mechanism for relief if you are denied a public record. But you should first contact the municipal government and that agency within municipal or the county government to see if they will provide that to you. And keep in mind, too, that not all information is public. There might be some personal information or information in the statute that says is not a public record, and that would be redacted from the material that they sent you.
Colin's asking about street signs. So he wants to know, who do I contact about street signs? I guess he lives on an Elm Street and, those signs get stolen, or maybe he wants a speed limit thing or something.
Well, I would begin with the Public Works Department, and if you're missing a street sign or whatever, a traffic directional sign or whatever, contact the Public Works Department. possibly the traffic division of the police department. Sometimes, depending on, if it's a secondary road, if it's a main artery, there may very well be a county road might be involved. The state road might be involved. Well, the police department can find out, exactly who is responsible for that particular sign. If that sign is missing, and they can be helpful in finding out the agency that's involved. But I would start with the Public Works Department, find out if that's a local responsibility of the department. They can make replacement signs, but it gets a little bit complicated. Like I say, if it's not, if it's a main artery, if the road is the responsibility of another governmental entity, then I would go to the police department, and they can help simplify that and be your quarterback in getting that that issue resolved.
We have a couple more questions here, but keep them coming. We'll keep asking as long as you keep sending them in. Kyle has a question that I would adore an answer to, and it's, why does it take so long to get permit approvals?
Good question. And there are many reasons depending on the kind of permit and the nature of the approval. For example, a permit to expand the footprint of your building may require a setback variance by the zoning board, or even approval by the Department of Environmental Protection if it is within close proximity of a stream, or the State Department of Transportation if that expansion has a potential impact on a state road and possibly a county road or a county bridge. Coordinating all of these agencies is time-consuming and expensive, and it oftentimes requires hiring a lawyer or expert who has experience in the permitting process. However, bottom line, if you believe the municipality is dragging its feet, you can address your concerns with the appropriate department head, the town manager, or the mayor, and if that fails, you can hire an attorney and bring some litigation against the town. I would consider that, your avenue of last resort, but under the law, a town cannot arbitrarily hold back on issuing a permit. There must be a reasons, and there must be legitimate reasons as to why a particular approval is being denied. And I think, in most cases that I've been involved with over the years, is if the particular department is not functioning the way that it should, and not being responsive to the business owner, they want to know about that, and they're going to check into it, because as a business owner, you have a lot to say. I mean, keep in mind, as a business owner, you're paying property taxes, you're paying other taxes to the town, and you're an important rateable, and should be important by the administrative officers. But in most cases, your elected officials understand the importance of your business, and they will try to assist you in resolving your problems and getting the permit issued in a timely fashion. And again, if you're not happy with it, go to hire an attorney.
Melanie would like to know where she can get copies of public meeting schedules.
The municipal clerk. The municipal clerk is the custodian of all public records. And in January of every year, I think it's the second Tuesday of the month. I might be wrong on that, but it's normally within the 2 or 3 weeks of the beginning of the year. Each town in the state must have a reorganization meeting. At the reorganization meeting, they appoint their key professionals like the attorney, the engineer, and other professionals, and they also have to have an ordinance setting forth the meeting schedule, not just for the mayor and governing body officials, but for all of the other bodies, like the planning board, the zoning board, recreation board, commissions, and a number of key department functions and meeting agencies that we mentioned earlier. And also, I might add, sorry, I also add that a lot of that information, again, I'm an old timer, I've been around a long time, but you can get the information off the website. Back in the old days, you had to rely on paper, but now with technology, you can get a lot of that information regarding meeting schedules and information off the website, and by law, public meetings of the governing body must be given notice in a newspaper of general circulation.
Connie needs to get a hold of a specific municipal ordinance, and we can obviously help her out with that offline. But for anyone else who needs to get a copy of something, or someone who's listening to this after the fact who doesn't have the benefit of just writing into us, how can someone get a copy of a municipal ordinance?
There's a couple ways. I've noticed over the last few years, many towns have codified ordinances online. You can go on their website and you can get a copy of the ordinance. But if they don't have the ordinance, you can contact the municipal clerk's office, or like I say, the county clerk's office if you're looking for an ordinance involving county government, and you can get a copy of that ordinance. You can download it if you're online. If you go to the municipality and get it, there may be a fee, a nominal fee, but they will charge you a fee so much per copy. It's set by state statute. It used to be like 15 cents a page. It might be more. I'm not exactly sure on that, but the fee structure is available, and that information is also online in most cases.
Well, that looks like about all the questions we have, so I think it's as good a time as any to bring this to a close. Don't forget, all of you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar and the PowerPoint slides via email. And when you close out of the webinar, a survey will come up on your screen that we hope you'll fill out so we can understand how to best provide you important information in a webinar format. So until next time, for Bill Dressel, this is Vinny Civitello thanking you for being with us this morning and wishing you a good day.